as a formally trained surgeon, how do you look at those types of books that you were talking about a second ago, the Zig Ziglar, Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill genre category of self-improvement type books versus more traditional education or books that are written more by Malcolm Gladwell or an Adam Grant or some of these more, I guess, qualified people to talk about it? Like, how do you parse through information? I guess
Malcolm Gladwell was great. I mean, Tipping Point. I think that for a surgeon to become good, or you just whether you're proficient in an instrument or a sport, you've got to put the time in.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. There's debate whether it's 10,000 hours or not.
Sure.
But you got to put the time on tissue, as we say in surgery. So I don't know.
I just
think
mean
a lot
more
of
like
that,
some of those. I feel like these two worlds, because I exist in kind of both of them, and,
Yes.
I've interviewed a lot of people that are in this kind of I guess guru type world. Although I try to stay away from real gurus that build kind of cults instead of helping people. But anyway, that's a different conversation. And then I also have had conversations with plenty of psychologists and doctors and formally educated folks, and I feel like the two worlds kind of butt heads a little bit. I guess kind of what I'm asking. Do you feel that at all?
I don't really feel that way.
Okay.
I mean, if I'm reading a book or listening to a podcast, I try to extract. Obviously, it reflects on my own experience, and then extract what I need at that time. And then sometimes I'll go back and listen again, or read again months or years later, and I see something completely different.
Okay.
But I know what you're talking about in terms of those gurus are building cults, and they got a certain amount of following, and they have their own plan of action that they're trying to do, and
they're not
unfortunately maybe it's more self-serving than to try
exactly.
to help the folks
That's what
who are
I mean.
in that.
Or they just don't know what they don't know type of a thing, and that's where I start having an issue when it's when you start preaching one way and my way is the only way type of a thing, and it's but literally none of the research backs up what you're saying. So how does this help the masses? It might be good for you, but I don't know if it's going to be helpful for a lot of these other people. So that's all. I was just curious about that because I've found just conflicting sides of both of those stories, and so I always like to ask people who have the formal education, because that's not my background either. But I try to gather information from as many sources as I can.
I don't know necessarily that I remembered all of that, from my childhood, but I did. At some place I absorbed
it. Seeped in.
Right,
right,
exactly.
subconsciously at least.
Amongst the folks who were, trying to help those who were in business, like my dad, who were side entrepreneurs and things like that. Today it's like a side gig or whatever. But,
Right, it's the side hustle. Did you ever pick up on any of those?
A side hustle?
Side hustles?
No, I never did.
No. It shows though, because you're obviously very successful and you focused on one thing and you're great at it. So, which is probably the advice that most people should adhere to, and the one that I struggle with the most.
Right. No, I think it's important to find the thing that kind of drives you, and then put your heart and soul into that.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the time go easy. I mean, I remember my dad saying, well, if you find something you like to do, then you don't have to work a day. That type of idea. Mm-hmm. And my team will tell you that the days are long, but for me, it just seems to go fast.
Yeah. How do you advise young people that are kind of, 15, 16, 17, they're looking at life, they're looking at these different career paths? Because what I do, you can decide to do anytime.
Right.
You could decide right now that you could, I just want to be a podcaster. You could do that at any point. I can't just be like, I want to be a plastic surgeon and then dedicate the next 12 years of my life to go back to school, get a bachelor's, apply to medical school, go through all these different things that have to happen in order to be able to do that. So how do you advise somebody who's that young, who maybe they don't know if they want to go to medical school, but it seems interesting, but it's such a commitment just to get to the point where you can start the career, that if you put in all this work and do all the hours and then you realize you don't want to do it and you're 34 and you have all this debt, and now what do you do with your life?
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that question, because I have two boys that are in their 20s, and neither of them are going to go to medical school. So obviously, I couldn't encourage them, to do it. But medicine is a little bit different today. I mean, I'm in a unique position in a unique field. But I always told them, look, just be true to your heart, and follow that. So both of them are amazing, are great students, but they're completely different, on their paths. One of them is hospitality management, real estate, and digital marketing, and the other one is chemical engineering. So it's like,
Oh, wow.
very,
Wildly
very different.
Yeah. Just personality types, you think?
Yeah, both of them excelled in school. The younger one is, I would say, more of a grinder.
What's the age difference?
So they're 2 years apart.
Okay.
2.5
All right.
years, yeah.
Yeah, so that wasn't
21,
even like
23.
Yeah, it wasn't even like a siloed raising either. It wasn't like 6 or 7 years or something like that. That's interesting that they're kind of divergent paths there.
Yeah, their personalities are completely different.
Yeah. So I'm a parent. I have a 5-year-old and I say 3-year-old. She's gonna be 4 in about a week.
Oh.
So
That's a great age.
yeah, 5 and 4. So I always have to selfishly ask parenting advice whenever I'm talking to a parent who has successfully gotten kids out into the real world doing things in society. So talk to me real quick about your
I would say my
quick
wife
hit
and I.
parenting advice.
Yeah, I would say my wife and I, are probably more disciplined with the kids over the time than most.
Okay.
Karen is by profession a teacher.
Okay.
So she's kindergarten, 2nd grade, since retired, but has a master's degree in education.
Okay.
And I think that plays an important role. But
What do you mean by more disciplined?
well, I mean, like this is what you're going to do, and you're going to do it this way. I mean, just
okay.
Tighter control than what I see out there, like amongst our friends.
Okay.
In terms of this is how we're out for dinner. This is how we expect you to behave at the table.
This is how a bowman comports themselves in society.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a series of small, consistent efforts over time.
Yeah.
So it's and you have to also exude that as well. You can't just be saying one thing and doing another. So you have to lead by example on that.
Yeah, that's the kicker. It's easy just to be like, all right, you have to do these things,
And then
they're
you go
like-
off and do something
Yeah,
completely different.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's just not going to work. You have to work hard and do your homework, and then, I'm sitting
Yeah,
on
while
the
you're watching
lazy
TV,
boy watching
yeah.
TV, playing video games. That's not going to work.
Get back to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the difference between a boss and a leader, right? It's the leaders out front actually showing people what to do versus just telling them this is what you should be doing because it's probably good for you, but it's like the smoker telling you to not smoke. Like while they're lighting up, like don't ever smoke, it's bad for you.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.